Good evening. I hereby call to order the November 9th, 2015 council meeting of the City of Mayfield Heights. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. DeJohn?
Here.
Mr. Mano?
Here.
Mr. Mercurio?
Here.
Mr. Monaco? Mrs. Sabetta?
Here.
Mr. Sharia?
Here.
Mrs. Tressi?
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. We will next move on to approval of the minutes from our council meeting of October 26th, 2015. I hope everyone's had a chance to review the minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of our council meeting of October 26th, 2015 have been approved as written. We will now deviate from our agenda. I need a motion to deviate so we can present Resolution 2015-56. Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mr. Sharia. Roll call on the motion.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes, this motion has been approved. Mayor, will you please read the resolution 2015-56 in its entirety?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. This resolution does commend Corporal Joe Leskovic on establishing the Neighborhood Watch program. So I would ask Joe to please come forward. And I'm going to sit back here so I have the mic and I can get it all on record, Joe. So bear with me. Okay, this is resolution number 2015-56, introduced by myself and all members of council. A resolution commending Corporal Joseph Leskovic for establishing the Neighborhood Watch program. Whereas in 2009, former police chief Joseph Donnelly asked Corporal Joseph Leskovic to establish a Neighborhood Watch program, and whereas Corporal Leskovic conducted extensive research on the program in other cities, and whereas the first meeting of the program was held with 6 members in attendance, and whereas the program allows citizens to help in the fight against crime, bond with the community, lend their neighbors a hand, and work with law enforcement to keep a trained eye and ear on their communities, and whereas through Corporal Leskovic's efforts and dedication in leading the Neighborhood Watch program, it has grown to approximately 400 members in 6 years. And whereas under Corporal Leskovic's direction, the program is a resounding success in fostering a positive working relationship between police personnel and the residents. And whereas Corporal Leskovic has chosen to move on to different roles within the police department and resigned in July as the liaison officer to the Neighborhood Watch program, and takes with him our heartfelt thanks for his efforts and dedication in establishing a successful program for the citizens to be involved in it. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Mayfield Heights, Cuyahoga County, State of Ohio, that the mayor and the council, on behalf of the citizens of the City of Mayfield Heights, Cuyahoga County, commend and extend gratitude and sincere appreciation to Corporal Joseph Leskovic for establishing the Neighborhood Watch program in the City of Mayfield Heights. It was passed, will be passed, November 9th, 2015, attested by Clerk Robert Tribby, President of Council Gail Teresi, and myself, Anthony DeSico. Congratulations, Joe.
Thank you all. I do appreciate it. 6 years ago when I undertook this challenge, I had no idea where I was going to go, how I was going to do it, and who was going to help me. But my name's on this, but it shouldn't be just mine. It should be all of you residents who've come month in and month out for the last 6 years. It's just been phenomenal. All the women and men that I work with that have helped me along the way. To mention Jill Turner started with me, carried on to Bob Bandlow, who did a phenomenal job with me. Moving on to Scott Saddam, as well as Doug Woods. Just the men and women that I work with that have helped me, the support of our chief, Chief Bittner along the way, as well as the mayor, members of council. Again, my name's on this, but it shouldn't be just mine, it should be all of yours. Thank you all for your support, and I wish the program nothing but the best here on out. Thank you very much.
You clean up pretty good, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. They have big shoes to fill to do as well as you have in the last 5 years. We'll miss you. Now we have to approve that resolution. So is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Mano. I think Joe's done a terrific job. We're all very proud of him and hope that Block Watch continues to do as well as it has with Joe at the helm. Anything else? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. This resolution 2015-56 has been approved. We will now continue with our agenda, and we'll begin with correspondence and announcements. Does anyone on council have anything they'd like to share? Mr. Sharia, do you have something you'd like to share?
Well, I would like to mention that this past week I received a lot of mail, and I thought it was fan mail, but it wasn't. And this came from a number of residents out there at Eastgate there in the, what is it, the Golden?
Bates Mills Villa?
Yeah, and all of them expressed complaints about the location of the winking lizard. I got it right, Mayor. And I'd like to read just one, and that would be a sample of all of them I've received. To the Mayfield Heights City Council members, I am a resident of Gates Mills Villa. I moved to this location to ensure my safety and peace and quiet. I don't think you would be happy to have that facility in your backyard or even close to it. I do hope that you will consider the traffic, the yelling from the patio, and the loud music. We have residents from 62 to 101 years old. Would you want your elderly family members having to live with all that disruption? There's plenty of room in the parking lot to erect the establishment. Shame on Eastgate for even considering construction so close to senior buildings and a nursing home. And this one is signed by Karen Bilden. And again, like I say, this is typical, and I assume this full house is not here to see me, but to raise the issue with the location of this property. So be it.
Thank you, Mr. Sharia. Anyone else? I would just like to comment on the election that just took place, and say that unfortunately, Mr. Monaco was not reelected, so his seat will now go to two new council people, Diane Snyder, who served on council for 12 years and now is returning, and Donna Finney, who will also be returning. Donna was on council for 8 years. And Mr. Sharia is not coming back.
I did not seek re-election.
And Mr. Sharia, you must know, has provided wonderful reports and a lot of terrific entertainment while he's been here the last 4 years, and we will miss him.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank everyone for the support, for the votes that I got. I was fortunate to be reelected as well. Seeing no other correspondence or announcements, we will move on to reports of our officers, and we will begin with our mayor, Mayor DeSico.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. On a more serious note, I would like to take a moment of silence for our co-worker, Judy Delfs, who buried her daughter, Karen, today. Thank you. Judy, know that our thoughts and prayers are with you. I would like to offer my congratulations to Council President Gail Teresi and Council members-elect Diane Snyder and Donna Finney on their successful elections. Also in the election, the gas and electric aggregation issues passed on November 3rd. The aggregation program will allow our community to join with others that need electricity or natural gas and use collective strength to negotiate better prices. The city will choose an energy supplier after 2 public meetings where residents and small business members can ask questions. This is a government opt-out program, so the city will choose an energy supplier and residents and small businesses will have the option not to participate. Opt-out cards will be sent giving you the option to say no thanks and go with a supplier of your own choice. If you choose to participate, you simply discard the opt-out card and you're automatically enrolled. There is no opt-out fee for natural gas. There is a $25 opt-out fee for electricity that is waived during the initial enrollment, and then again every 3 years during a reminder period. There's absolutely no membership cost to residents or small businesses or the city. Member communities and customers are not charged any dues or fees. If you choose to participate, your local natural gas and electricity utility still will be responsible for delivering your natural gas and electricity, reading your meter, sending your bill, and responding to emergencies, and residents can remain on budget billing. Passage of the issues will allow for savings as early as March 2016. I will attend two meetings next week to obtain further information that I will share with all as soon as I get it. The city's leaf collection program is in full swing. Please be sure to rake your leaves to the curb in a timely manner. And as you know, we cannot make return trips to streets until the entire cycle is complete. This is the only way to provide equal service to all residents. And speaking of leaf raking, the members of the Mayor's Community Council and the Mayfield High School Key Club, about 25 to 35 students, took to some needy houses on Saturday, and I want to say it was about 15 houses that we took care of their leaves, and the residents really appreciate it. So I really want to thank the Mayor's Community Council and the boys and girls from the Mayfield High School Key Club. Sewer line repair began last Tuesday, November 3rd on Lander Road between Mayflower and Mayland. Two-way traffic is being maintained, and estimated completion is in 2 weeks. The crack sealing program began today. Work will be during daylight hours, weather permitting, and traffic will be maintained at all times. On-street parking is prohibited during maintenance operations. The entire program will last approximately 2 to 3 weeks. with work on each street lasting only one day. Your patience and understanding is appreciated. There will be a road closure for the Girls on the Run 5K event this Sunday, November 15th, from 9:30 until 10:30 on Lander Road and Ridgeberry Boulevard. Girls throughout Northeast Ohio in grades 3 through 8 will be running a 5K as part of an educational program focusing on their physical, emotional, mental, and social well-being. We understand that road closures are an inconvenience, and we appreciate your understanding and support. Should you have any emergencies on the day of the event, please call 911, and police along Lander and Ridgeberry will see that you will be able to get out of your driveway. If you have any other questions about this event, please visit www.northeastohio.org or call Girls on the Run at 234-206-0786. The run will start at 9:30 at the Mayfield High School entrance on Lander Road. They will head south on Lander to Ridgeberry and then east on Ridgeberry to Somme Center Road. They will turn around at Somme and head west on Ridgeberry to the sidewalk entrance of Mayfield High School, and will finish on the Mayfield High School track at 10:30 a.m. Road closures and approximate times are Lander Road 9:30 to 9:45 and Ridgeberry 9:30 to 10:15. Mark your calendars for the annual holiday lighting ceremony that will take place on Sunday, November 29th from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. in the Fire Department bays. This is a great family event to kick off the holiday season. And reminder, the chili cook-off to benefit the Community Partnership on Aging, Aging Safe at Home program will be held this Saturday, November 14th from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the South Euclid Community Center. Tickets are $10 per person. You can call Robin for tickets, and that's 216-291-3902. If you come on out and support the Mayfield Heights Fire Department, who are the defending two-time champs, audience votes do count, so participate. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any questions or comments for the mayor? Mayor, we forgot to wish our Mayfield Heights football team good luck in the game on Friday night. I believe they'll be playing Warren Harding, and I believe it's going to be in Solon. So we want to wish Larry Pinto, the coach, and that our high school team good luck. Hope they can bring home one more win. Next, we'll move on to a report from our Director of Law, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no formal report this evening, but I would like to note to council that resolution number 2015-57, which was to award a contract to Kimball Companies for recycling and trash collection, there was an error on there in that it was supposed to also provide dumpsters for recycling. And so I had to do a substitute resolution with a new section 2, which has been distributed to the clerk and to all members of council. So when you get to resolution number 2015-57, I request that you consider the substitute resolution. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Are there any questions for Mr. Murphy? We'll move on to our Director of Finance, Mr. Tribby.
I have no report this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Tribby. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Tribby? Next, we will move on to reports of committees, commissions, and boards, and we will begin with our Building Committee, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no report tonight.
Thank you. Questions or comments for Mr. Mano? Next, we'll move on to Finance and Audit Committee, Mr. Mercurio.
Thank you, Madam President. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Questions or comments for Mr. Mercurio? We will move on to the Legislative Committee, and Mr. Monaco is absent this evening. Is there a legislative report?
No.
Thank you. We'll move on to Public Works and Service Committee, Mr. Sharia.
Thank you. A side note to the mayor, of course, infringing on my province about the leaf pickup. And he didn't mention that he wants residents to know that they shouldn't put any brush or tall grass into the piles because that would clog up and perhaps damage the machines. Another thing, the service department is putting up Christmas lights again, the holiday lights. As you know, they put up the Halloween lights and forgot to put up Brutus, okay, for Ohio State. She had mentioned that Mayfield, okay, plays Warren. Well, I want you to know that Ohio State on Saturday plays Illinois, okay?
We all get fair time.
The service department, by the way, has planted, I guess a couple of dozen trees, and they've also started to gear up for winter. Apparently, they've begun to make some orders for salt, that kind of thing. And I want you to know that concludes my report. I want to thank you this time for your time. Until next time, and soon, my last time. Thank you.
Mr. Sharia, you're a riot. What are we gonna do without you?
Finney and the rest will handle it.
Let's move on to Recreation and Parks Committee, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. The 9th Annual Craft Show was held on Sunday at the Ross DeJohn Community Center with over 30 vendors, making it a successful, busy event. Thank you to all who supported it. Parks and Recreation met on October 27th. The November 10th Fall Luncheon, Adult Luncheon, tomorrow has 46 attending. Our November lunch brunch will be going to Applebee's on November 18th at 11:30. If interested, a reservation is a must. The Santa breakfast is Saturday, December 12th. Sessions are 9 a.m. to 10:15, 10:30 to 11:45. $5 per person. Reservations can be made by calling Parks and Rec or visiting the city's website. Wildcat Sport and Fitness is the place to go to get some exercise. The membership rates are individual, $32, family, $105, senior citizen, $12. This is for 1 year. That's a deal. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Are there questions or comments for Mrs. Sabetta? We will now move on to Safety and Transportation Committee. Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Are there comments or questions for Mr. DeJohn? We will move on to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Mr. Mercurio.
Thank you, Madam President. We do have several items on tonight's agenda, and we can address those when they come up.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments for Mr. Mercurio? The Commission on Aging is the commission that I sit on, and it's just a reminder that on December 5th will be our social dance at the Ross C. DeJohn Community Center. DJ Billy J will provide the music for the evening. I would also like to ask again this year if each council member would consider donating a raffle prize for the dance. And if you feel that you can or would like to dance, feel free to join everyone on December 5th at the community building. We would love to see a big crowd that evening. And the mayor also took some of my report and talked about the chili cook-off, but that's quite all right. It's November 14th. And the next Commission on Aging meeting will be held in council chambers on Tuesday, December 8th at 5 p.m. And that concludes my report. Are there any questions or comments?
Madam President, if I could just, I just wanted to touch on a discussion we started at the last Commission on Aging meeting, and that was the role and responsibilities of the Commission on Aging, and maybe changing those roles and responsibilities, or maybe revamping the commission. Our association now with the Community Partnership on Aging has taken most of the responsibilities from the Commission on Aging. All the commission's responsibilities have been assumed very well by Community Partnership on Aging, and even expanded on some of that. So I just wanted to let council know that we may be talking about changes or some kind of restructuring of the commission, maybe.
Thanks, Mayor. We will next move on to our Planning Commission. Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. We did have a planning meeting last Monday evening with 2 items on the agenda, and we have 2 motions on our agenda this evening. The first item was the final site plan for additional parking spaces. That would be 50 additional parking spaces in front of Villa Serena apartment building. And this was an unanimous approval, and 2 of the items that Mr. Monaco brought up, the size of the parking spaces was addressed, and they will be 9 by 18, and also the landscaping in front of the parking area. There will be landscaping. The second item on the agenda was Ganley Nissan on Mayfield Road next to Algiers Drive. They were approved for a preliminary site plan, approved for modification of a non-conforming building. Specifically, they will be building an 1,870 square foot car wash building attached to their existing building on the east side of their property. This project will include tearing down a 7,000 square foot structure at the back of their property, also on the east side of their building. This also was unanimously approved, and I can answer any questions when it comes up on the agenda tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeJohn. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. DeJohn? We will now move on to Mayfield Union Cemetery. Mrs. Sabetta.
No report, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to the Ad Hoc Committee. Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm still awaiting the final draft from Mr. Majewski on that fence ordinance. As soon as we get that, we can wrap that up.
Thank you. We will begin with our public portion at this time pursuant to Section 121.02, Section H8 of the Codified Ordinances of the City. Each person will be allowed 5 minutes to speak with a maximum of 30 minutes for the entire public portion. This is not a time for public debate. This is your opportunity to address council with your concerns, and please know that there will be no personal attacks allowed. If you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is also your opportunity to address City Council. If you would like to be heard this evening, please raise your hand and be recognized. Approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. It is now 7:32, and we will open the public portion. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, and I'm grateful to be here tonight, and thank you for the opportunity to address all of you. I did send a letter out to each of you certified, plus I emailed it today, and I'm not sure how many of you have had an opportunity to read it. So I'm going to take my time to kind of go over the 6 points that I am speaking about.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm Vicki Shepard. I'm Executive Director of Gates Mills Club Senior Living, and it's located at 6759 Mayfield Road, over by Gates Mills Villa and HCR Manor Care. Alrighty. I just last week received information about the potential addition of a Winking Lizard Tavern and Restaurant within feet of a cul-de-sac and parking lot containing 3 senior housing facilities: Gates Mills Club Living, Senior Living, Gates Mills Villa, and HCR Manor Care Nursing Home. The original notice from the zoning board probably went to each of our respective home offices rather than to those of us who manage our properties. So we're just now finding out, or at least I am. The purpose of my letter is to give you some food for thought as you consider your vote in approving or not approving this project. Winking Lizard is a nationwide tavern that wants to be thought of as a family restaurant that also serves alcohol, has entertainment, and an outside patio at each place. However, they draw a younger clientele that tends to party. I'm not against Winking Lizard. It would be a good addition to Mayfield Heights, but its choice of placement behind the East Gate Shopping Center and off an access road with no visible frontage for drawing clientele is peculiarly counter to its mission. Point number 2, there are approximately 600 seniors ranging in age from 60 to 105 years of age in these 3 senior facilities. Having a tavern with loud music within just feet of our buildings would be extremely disruptive and unhealthy for our aging and convalescing seniors. They deserve better. While I cannot speak for the Villa or Manor Care, I can speak for Gates Mill Club when I say the seniors in my care moved there from their homes because they needed additional care. Many of these people are the golden agers celebrated by the city of Mayfield Heights for having lived 50+ years in this town. Age has limited their lifestyle and health, and they just want to enjoy what they still can of their latter years with peace and companionship. Point number 3, every day I see motorized wheelchairs and seniors with walkers traversing across that road to go to CVS Pharmacy, Walmart, and Hillcrest Hospital, even in the winter with snow on the ground. I would worry about the significant possibility of someone getting hit by a car driven by someone who had a few beers at Winking Lizard and just didn't see them in time to stop. Point number 4, EMTs come into our cul-de-sac almost every day and night, many times more than once, to assist with emergencies at all 3 properties. Gates Mills Club alone has had 127 calls so far this year. I can only imagine what would happen when patrons of Winking Lizard are trying to come or go on the access road with its confusing stop sign arrangement after having drank a few and along comes an ambulance. Number 5, the minutes of your last meeting indicate that Cosmo Eastgate had to obtain a variance for Winking Lizard to build where it wants. Additionally, Cosmo Eastgate asked for a setback. Initially, I thought it was only 10 feet instead of the usual 20 feet. I have since then found out the usual is 30 feet, and they asked for 10 feet to be knocked off that, so it would be a 20-foot setback. And approval to waive the installation of any adequate buffer fence. My position is that if it absolutely has to go there and not somewhere else, they should at least have a greater setback and a 10-foot high fence, such as had to be installed by Costco in order for it to be so near a housing development. And lastly, it will be situated right next to a winter salt storage dome. There's no room for a barrier between it and patron parking. That will see multiple salt truck and front loader activity during the long winter. I can imagine a salt truck trying to back up and running into cars parked in front of the tavern late at night, so very close to it. Can you imagine this? I encourage you to reconsider your tentative approval for this venture. It would be detrimental to our seniors who deserve better from us, and detrimental to the tavern that deserves better placement than behind a shopping center. Think of the 3 restaurants that failed behind Golden Gate and the now empty building that is there. I extend an invitation to each one of you to visit Gates Mills Club Senior Living and get a first-hand view so you can make an informed choice. You are welcome anytime. And I will add, Mr. Sharia, when the time comes and you're ready for senior living, please come see us.
He'll call you tomorrow.
That was fantastic.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard? Yes, ma'am. It's now 7:38 and you have 5 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Paula Icavetta, I'm the Community Relations Director at Gates Mills Club Senior Living, 6759 Mayfield Road. I'm not speaking as a marketing director or as a sales director. I'm speaking as the daughter of my parents who actually live at Gates Mills Club. Speaking on an entirely different side of this, and I know I actually represent a lot of our residents' family as I say this. I have my mom and dad there for several reasons. One, so that they can live out the rest of their time in a peaceful area, a safe, secure area, an area that they don't have to worry about being disrupted by loud noises and any type of people coming up or around their homes like they had when they lived in the city, all of that. They're there so that they can rest, so that they can have security. I can tell you, my mom, who has the beginning of Alzheimer's, hears loud noises and she tends to wander. My concern is that when the loud noises start from the music, and I know it's going to be predominantly in the summer, you have to remember there's no sound barriers, there's no tall trees, there's nothing. So when the music starts and the beats start, it's going to travel right to Gates Mills Club. And that's a given because of the way the wind blows. With that, I can just see my mom getting confused more, not knowing what's going on, and possibly even walking out of the apartment, which she has done when there's been construction around the building. With that being said, I really would like for you to reconsider. I know it probably may or may not happen, whether you relocate the winking lizard, but I highly recommend that you put up some type of a wall or some type of a barrier. We're also concerned with the fact that with Gates Mills Towers, or Gates Mills Place, which is right, again, not too far from us, the foot traffic that's gonna happen back and forth, where people would be cutting through our parking lot, cutting through the area right in front of the Manor Care, they'll be able to walk right to it because there is no barrier. And that's another concern with vandalism in the cars, or someone just too inebriated to make it back and maybe deciding to sleep somewhere, or whatever the case may be. I know Winking Lizard has been known as a family place, and I do know that during the day, they're great. A lot of people do go there, and they do have the best ribs. But besides that, I do know in the evening, it is pretty much known as a sports bar, and there will be a lot of activity. So I ask that the council please reconsider your thoughts of where you're actually gonna place Winking Lizard in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak about the Winking Lizard? Please come forward. Please state your name. Okay. Well, we have someone else who got up before you, but come on up. You'll be next.
Okay,
Please state your name and your address for the record.
okay. My name is Vivian Murphy. I live at Gates Mills Club. I've been living there for 5 years, and I really think it's a great, fun place. If you ever, my attitude towards seniors before I moved there, which I am a senior, is they're pretty dull. You see white-haired ladies and old men. But believe me, behind that, there's a personality. And my thing is, I started researching about aging. I read several books on aging. And this country actually has a very negative attitude towards seniors. Actually, they don't care too much about them, really. And so I am a champion of seniors. And anytime there's any abuse, which I call this abuse, I am a champion of it. So I ask you please to reconsider the Winking Lizard. There's one on Coventry that I am aware of. I've been there. It is noisy, and it does draw, youthful people. So I am asking you to reconsider the Winking Lizard, or at least put up a barrier for us, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Henrietta Kelly, and I'm the property manager at Gates Mill Villa, right on the back door of where the Winking Lisa will be built. I have petition for my residents here, and I'm going to give it to the council. It's by the residents of Gates Mill Villa. We are a fun group at Gates Mill Villa, but we are asking that the Winking Lisa don't be built right on our doorstep in our backyard. Mr. Ressi, you are, let me say, a part of Gates Mill Villa, because I know your whole generation lived at Gates Mill Villa, and you know where the building is, you know how we live there, and seniors are people that, like she say, people should be loved and respected, and the noise from the Winking Lisa will disturb them. The salt being have been disturbing us for years, and we really don't want another distraction. We really don't want another disturbance to our residents, so please consider not putting that Winking Lisa in our backyard. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Council. My name is Joe Conti. I'm the Facility Director for PK Management. We manage and operate the Gates Mills Villa. We're here to add our voice along with our residents, our neighbors, and would like you to reconsider based on everything that you've heard, plus some of the things that maybe you haven't, plus maybe some of the things that were passed before anybody was aware of. One of the things we like to try and understand, which I don't think we have full understanding yet, is why the 10-foot variance, why closer to our building, why bringing everything, the noise, the smell, which along with maybe possibly restaurant smell. You're also gonna have diesel fuel. You're gonna have cars starting, warming up in the winter, open to our patios. We're in a confined area, kind of in that back area parking lot. It's not a lot of breeze. You're gonna have a lot of those fumes coming straight up. We have open balconies to our residents. A lot of them have breathing, health issues. So we're just wanting to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. I have elderly parents, one in a manor care out in Willoughby. If that restaurant was over there, I'd be very concerned myself. I think we had a couple good meetings with our residents. Mr. Hoffman was very kind, very courteous. He came to the meetings. He tried to help everybody understand. But I think what we're having a hard time understanding is with a large parking lot like we have, is there a parking study done? If there's plenty of parking, that's great. Then that means that restaurant doesn't have to be right on that borderline. Much less does it have to be 10 feet closer to that borderline. So if there's plenty of room there, we'd like to understand if the council would entertain. We did actually have a conference call with Mr. Kellum. I'm not sure if he's here tonight, who is the president of Winking Lizard. He said that nothing was actually put into stone, that he was open to having that conversation with everyone as well. I think everybody wants to be good neighbors. Mr. Hoffman, Cosmo has every right to utilize their property to the best of their benefit, but our residents do as well. They have every right to live in their apartments, to live in their homes, and to the best of their benefit, to utilize that property in their homes, to live out their lives in peace, quiet, and safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on behalf of Winking Lizard? Mr. Manfredi. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Gino Manfredi. I reside at 6755 Mayfield Road, Mayfield Heights, Ohio. I was at your last meeting, and I read your letter. I'm going to read it again. I mailed each and every council person a registered letter But when you asked if anyone got correspondence, the only answer I got was what Mr. Sharia had gotten a letter. Had you people on this council not gotten a letter, it was registered mail. I have proof of every person on the dais now, including the law director. And the letter is stated, we are about 200 plus people in this building ranging from age 62 to 101 years old with various types of illness. Next to my building is Manor Care Convalescent Home with many patients that are bedridden and handicapped. Also Gates Mills Club with 200 people with 60 that are 62 years and older. Please vote no for the Winning Lizard to be built next to the convalescent home and our senior citizens. Hoping you use good judgment. I signed that letter. I left my name and my address. I invited each and every one of you to come to my apartment and see how close this building is to where the residents are. And Mr. Monaco answered, and he came there and he talked to some of us people. Mrs. Sabetta called. She was one of the concerned. But what I'd like to say is, you know, when I was on council from 1994 to 2005, at that time, Mayor Pegg allowed the council people to answer questions from anyone in the audience. We don't do that today. I don't understand why not. Also, back then, we made house calls. We went to see what the problem was. Anytime that there was a problem or any motion that had come up that I had any question, I went out to the site. If that wasn't enough, I called other council people who joined me. We don't get that cooperation from this council today. I'm very surprised. I would hope, and that invitation still stands, I would hope to see each and every one of you council people to come to my apartment, to come to any of these people's apartments that are here, and see for yourself whether you would want your parents to live there. Or since 90% of the council live on Stratford, why don't we put it in there? That's not too far. 100 feet from your house shouldn't be too bad. That's what's happening to us. I would appreciate if you'd reconsider that, and thank you very much for your time.
Yes, ma'am. Please state your name and address for the record.
Ines Podgornova, resident of Gates Mills Villa. I am from Russia. All people who have came to America are delighted how the government and American people relate to old and sick people. We did not know it in our country before. We appreciate it and proud to live in this country. Concerning the decision to build a restaurant near the building where are living a lot of very sick old people sounds fearfully. There are many people who move with difficulties, who are connected with different devices, with sleep, bed, reacting to each sound around. Most of them could not come to our Friday meeting, but they exist, and it is necessary to think about them. At the same time, you are planning to make new noise from cars which will ride customers to restaurants, voices of people, rumble from garbage cars, sounds of delivering products cars. This everything will beat old people, make their life water and shelter. Please tell us, the money which our city will have from restaurant equal fostering health conditions of our people that are already sick.
Is there anyone else that would like to be heard about the winking lizard? Yes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Bonnie Patrick, 1461 Sunset Road. Laura Powell, 1451 Sunset Road. I do understand the concern about the winking lizard. I know that it's coming off as if this is a wild, crazy party bar. I'm not speaking to that. I just asked the council before voting it down if we could find a win-win situation, a barrier, something, because if you look around, and I've talked about this before, half of our buildings are vacant, and I hate to see this turned down. I understand. I am not disrespecting any of the elderly people, but at the same time, I would hope that we could find a win-win situation, because in every problem, there's a solution. And rather than just saying, no, you can't build here, we've got to figure something out. I just hate to see more vacant buildings and more, people going to other cities. I see growth in other cities, and I just want to see it in Mayfield Heights. So, a win-win. That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Manfredi, are you raising your hand to speak again?
First of all, I'd like to give you this letter so you could understand what the last speaker was saying, so that you each have a copy of this letter, what the Russian lady was saying. But what is very confusing to us and what should be answered is how large is the bar going to be in this building? How much seating capacity is going to be there? Do we have enough parking? Because when Eastgate was built, they were built that they had to provide so many parking spaces to accommodate all of the businesses, which is right and legal. Now, if we put a building on top of parking spaces, that means we're taking parking spaces away. Okay? Now, is that gonna satisfy us? We haven't heard the eating area compared to the bar room, and then you haven't on your plan that you got, that I received from the building department, does not show Gates Mills Villa building or Gates Mills Club Villa. So that way it was very easy for you people to vote and not see exactly where it was. We were able to get a different copy and find out where it was. So our questions is, how big is the patio going to be? Is that part of the 137 foot, or is that extended to the 137 foot? There are a lot of questions that need to be answered to satisfy us. And I'd like to thank Mr. Hoffman. He came to our building. He's a gentleman, always was, and he manned up, and he's a man of his word. Thank you.
Madam President, if I could just, Mr. Manfredi knows, the process, and that we're not to that process yet of the size and the exact details of the building. We do have a footprint, and right now what is on our agenda this evening is the zoning issues that we would be looking at. We're not to that part that you were questioning yet. So that's why you do not have bar area, seating capacity. We're not to that stage yet. So that's one answer to one of your questions.
I need a motion to extend our public portion. Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Hoffman, would you like to state your name and address for the record?
I think so.
Though we all know who you are now.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak beyond time, and in a minute I'm going to ask the president of Winking Lizard, Jim Callum, to come up and speak as well. And I have a few photographs that I will want to share with everyone, so you just
Put it on the square. There you go. Lisa, will you lower the lights a little so it can be seen? Thank you.
Okay, I am Andrew Hoffman. I represent Cosmo Eastgate Limited, owner of Eastgate Shopping Center. And I'm here tonight with Jim Callum, who's the president of Winking Lizard, to request that City Council approve 3 variances that were granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals so that we can develop a new freestanding restaurant in the rear of Eastgate. I happen personally to think that it would be a plus for the city to get at long last a restaurant that is very well respected and enjoyed. It is not, as someone said, a national chain. It is restricted to Northeast Ohio with a couple of restaurants now in Columbus. But it's a restaurant that enjoys a very good reputation, and I will talk about that a little more in a minute. And we're certainly excited to have the opportunity to have a Winking Lizard and to develop a part of our center that's been underutilized. So as you may know, I have met with separately the property management company for Gates Mills Villa, and most recently on Friday I met with many residents of Gates Mills Villa as well, and I want to thank the council president for seeing that meeting took place. And I have to say, I have been taken aback by the level of fear and level of anger directed at this proposed development. I guess I would expect that reaction if I was announcing that we were going to put a gas well in that location, or a gas station in that location, or a fast food restaurant with a big drive-through, or a strip club, or a go-kart track, or a biker bar. But Winking Lizard is none of those, and I think many people understand that. What Winking Lizard is, first of all, it's a story of a local boy who's made good. Jim Callum has a lot of connections to this community, still, as he did when growing up, and I think this would be a signature for him to be able to have a restaurant in his hometown, if you will. And I think, as he will explain to you, I think he understands the commitment and the importance, and will explain to you the kind of restaurant he plans on running here in Mayfield Heights at Eastgate. And the second point about what Winking Lizard is that it is a chain that is known for its consistently high quality, its family friendliness, and its orderliness. Personally, I've never been hesitant when my children were young to take them to dinner at Winking Lizard. I was never hesitant to take my late parents of blessed memory when they were in their 80s to dinner at the Winking Lizard. And when my grandson, who will be 8 months old in Thanksgiving, comes to Cleveland, I will be very happy to take him, along with his parents, to Winking Lizard as well. And I will always feel that way. But if the Winking Lizard were as it's been described by our neighbors, I certainly wouldn't take my family there. And if it were as it's been described by our neighbors, I wouldn't be standing in front of council today, because I wouldn't want that kind of restaurant at Eastgate. We've not had that kind of business at Eastgate, certainly in recent memory. I know that many residents walk through our parking lot whether for shopping at Mark's or Target or just for exercise. And that would certainly not be disrupted, and we would make sure it's not going to be disrupted. The only way that can possibly be disrupted is if the city actually requires us to put a masonry wall on the property line. That will literally block everyone, and I want to talk about that a little later when I talk about the specific variances. The residents of Mayfield Heights have a right to know that their commercial neighbors are being respectful and reasonable. And that's why when I went up to Mr. Manfredi's apartment at his request Friday afternoon after meeting with the tenants, and he explained that the biggest issue for him was the salt dome. After talking to my people this morning, we have agreed, come spring, to move that dome several hundred feet to the north, closer to this area, away from the building. So we understand our responsibilities as neighbors. And I understand why people might be afraid of the unknown, but somehow our neighbors have become convinced that the Winking Lizard here at Eastgate in Mayfield Heights will be a hangout for hooligans with loud music blasting on the patio, and will have drunken patrons relieving themselves on the property. I heard this very thing at the meeting Friday. I've heard, well, you know, I'd like to turn it over to Jim Callum to have him explain the kind of operation he plans to run at Eastgate.
Hi, good evening. My name's Jim Callum. I live at 36399 Dorchester in Gates Mills. I have lived in, or grew up in Highland Heights, Mayfield Village, attended St. Pascal's and Mayfield High School. I've been with the Winking Lizard for 32 years. We have never, well, I guess our primary business is food. I'm a food guy. I started out in the kitchen at the Winking Lizard. Our reputation has been built on our burgers, wings, ribs, and pizza, along with the many other food items we have. We do serve beverages. I have a partner, John Lane, who would tell you that we're best known for our beer program, as he is a beer connoisseur. But I would always argue with him that we built this company on our food. Our typical customer, it depends on the neighborhood we're in. It truly represents the demographic of every city that we actually have a location in. We're in the National Park down in Peninsula, which gets a diverse crowd of people that visit the park every year. There's over 1 million visitors. We have a location downtown Cleveland. It's primarily a business crowd or a sports crowd going to a game. So in the respect that what will happen if we do get a location in Mayfield Heights, I think it'll truly represent a cross-section of the people that do live and work in the area. I don't expect it to be a location and actually shop in the area, but it's not a, people tend to want to eat close to home now. If you asked me 10 years ago if we do a location in the area here, I would have probably said, no, we have one too close on Miles Road, which is 8-9 miles up 271. But today, I think that with the amount of people that go out to eat and get food on carryout, which is also a big part of our business, that it works because people are looking for something that's convenient. The location that we're speaking of behind Eastgate, you know, it might be a bit unusual. We're about, I don't know, a day away from signing for the location behind Golden Gate before the landlord opted to go in a different direction about a year ago. So we're used to having unusual locations in respect to possibly not being mainstream or right on the main street or having to have a big sign or a big billboard. We feel that our reputation precedes us, and it will actually draw the people to the location. We have not really been known as a drinking man's bar. We have, I think, very attractive patios. We do have music on them, and it's typically background music. The only locations that have live entertainment or bands have it because it tends to work in that location. We have one location in Lakewood that has a huge auditorium, and they offer a local band typically 5 or 6 times a year. Our location in Bedford Heights on Miles Road, which is our first location, offers live music on the patio third Friday of each summer month. However, I don't think we have any residents it's an industrial area, so it seems to fit right in. We try to be a part of the community when we do open a location there. We don't come in, this is actually the most, we typically don't even have any resistance, so I appreciate the turnout here, and I've heard a lot of things that I don't think I've heard at any prior meetings I've been to involving a winking lizard, and I respect all the thoughts and the opinions tonight. I can see, I understand how you feel about it, and you know, I think we have to respect your thoughts, how council feels, and how everyone thinks this could be a part of the community, and we'll respect that decision either way. So with that, I'll turn back to Mr. Hoffman.
So I want to, and again, I'm obviously going to exceed my 5 minutes, but I think I would ask in fairness that I have an opportunity to fully respond to many of the issues that have been raised tonight.
Excuse me, do I have a motion to extend Mr. Hoffman's, Mr. DeJohn, Mr. Mercurio? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Approved. Thank you.
So in my experience in the 2 decades that we've owned and managed Eastgate, I know that the city has been a fair guardian for the interests of its residents, as well as understanding that a vibrant and healthy commercial base is important for the health of the city. And so I want to talk about the big picture for a minute. And that is simply this: the business of shopping centers has been changing over the last 10 years, and that rate of change will only accelerate. If you think about all of the stores and the store chains that have disappeared or shrunk dramatically, not just by name but by category: record stores, video stores, office supply stores, bookstores, toy stores. People are much more likely to shop online, and that trend will only accelerate. And so there are many less stores and retailers than there used to be, and those that do survive will need less and less selling space for that. And you can travel to any city in the area, and you can see, as an earlier speaker, whom I've never met, indicated that there are larger and larger vacancies everywhere, and I'm very proud that Eastgate does not have that problem today. But the result of all this is that one safe bet is to find tenants who provide something that you can't buy online. And the most obvious example of that is a restaurant. And those of you who were on city council over a decade ago when we did our massive redevelopment of Eastgate know that we waited for a long time to put together the right mix of tenants. And we stored a lot of vacancies for a long time. And I could have filled those vacancies with certain types of stores, but I did not. I waited for the right stores and the right mix of stores. And since then, we've been full. And then when Circuit City went out of business, again, I didn't rush to fill it right away. I waited for the right combination of stores to replace Circuit City, and I think that's worked out very well. And so I have been approached over the years about people wanting to put something in the back of Eastgate, and I didn't really entertain any of them seriously until I got a call from Jim Callum and Winking Lizard, and I immediately thought that would be a great use for that spot and would be a positive to everybody. So having said that, I want to talk about the 3 variances. The first one we've asked for, and the bottom line is it kind of is the go or no-go variance, and that is for outdoor seating. As with the many other restaurants in Mayfield Heights that have asked for and been granted variances for outdoor sales, outdoor seating, as we know, is a very important part for restaurants' draw and their ultimate success. And in the case of Winking Lizard, I'd like to show you what their patio would look like, and here's photos of their Avon Lake patio. Here's another photo towards the rear of it, and you also can see the back of the restaurant, which has windows in it. This restaurant this back would be facing south, and you can see the edge of the patio. And so I think what these photographs demonstrate is that these patios are where people go to enjoy eating. You will find just as many families as you will anybody else. And I commit to you now, there will never be live music at Eastgate on this patio, period. As we all know, the outdoor dining season in Northeast Ohio is a short one. It's much shorter than the outdoor snow plowing and salting season, unfortunately, but that's a fact of life. So we're talking about a relatively short period of time. But I think what these photos also indicate is the kind of business that Jim Callum runs and what's important to him. And I think it's also fair to say that these photos show that the patio actually has added aesthetic appeal and adds to the view and the look, the attractive look of the building itself. And as you probably also are aware, there are very few opportunities for a patio anywhere at Eastgate. We have a very small one behind Fox and Hound, but a freestanding building really presents the best and only possibility to have outdoor eating, which is a growing part of every restaurant's success here and elsewhere. And so the request for a variance, which was granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals for outside sales, is critical to whether Winking Lizard will come here, and would be critical to any location they have. The two remaining variance applications arise because of a hardship that runs with the land, and that has to do with the unique boundary line of Eastgate. When Eastgate was first developed in the 1960s, there were no apartment buildings behind it. The Gates Mills Villa was built in 1972, at least a decade afterwards. And that is the basis for the two additional variances. Now, the first one we asked for is a setback. And I just want to spend a second on it because, as one of the speakers suggested, looking for win-win solutions. Although it complicates the matter, I would be willing to forego the 10-foot request for setback. But the reason why we asked for it is because the northern edge of Gates Mills Villa is 94 feet from its property line. The additional 20 feet that we asked for brings it to 115 feet. The additional 10 feet, which is about the distance from me to council, wouldn't make a significant difference. However, simply put, in the interests of being accommodating to the concerns, I'm willing to forego that variance and live with the 30-foot setback. It's going to be landscaped anyway. It was never meant to be anything but that. So that's our commitment today. The final variance that we've requested and received has to do with the buffer wall. Now, the appropriate city ordinance of Mayfield Heights requires that when there's a U4A zone district, which we are, and it adjoins a residential district, there has to be a 6-foot-high masonry buffer wall. The first problem is that the ordinance is vague. So how long does the wall have to be? Does it have to extend the entire property line to the south and then the entire property line to the east? Well, the first thing that would do is basically create a prison yard effect, and I don't think anybody wants that. Are we really required to put up 1,500 feet of masonry wall? The ordinance is unclear. It doesn't say. And the real issue is, who would this ordinance help? Would it actually help the people it's designed to protect? And so the first question is, the ordinance calls for a 6-foot masonry buffer wall. Common sense would tell you that of the approximately 85% of the residents who live on floors 2 through 8 of Gates Mills Villa, they won't be helped by a 6-foot buffer wall. It won't protect the view. Whatever sounds there are won't be protected either from a 6-foot-high wall. All it will do is keep people out in both directions. It will end up blocking the view that people on the first floor of Gates Mills Towers have now. It will end up resulting in the view of the diners sitting in the back of the restaurant. It will end up having them face a 20-foot wall. And more importantly, it will do the following things. It will create a blank canvas for graffiti. Eastgate has had issues over the years with people placing graffiti on our walls, and it is not pretty, and it is often profane, and I have no doubt that this wall will be a welcome for people to start, those people who like to deface other people's property. And so that's my first concern, and I think it's real. The second concern is that any length of wall will, because of the varying lighting you'll have, will create shadows. And my concern for the safety of the residents and the pedestrians is much greater with a masonry wall than it would be without it. We can certainly put up buffer landscaping, hedges, if that's appropriate, that would still have openings to allow for pedestrians from Gates Mills Villa and Gates Mills Club and elsewhere to walk through the property as we know they do every day and not have to go on the main drive. And we're willing to do that. We've always been open about adding additional landscaping. You can see the landscaping that they put on their patio at other locations, and we're certainly willing to do that. And the final issue is that putting that masonry wall up will block any visibility of the restaurant from traffic coming in from Mayfield Road. And that's why we've chosen that location, to give it at least some visibility for traffic entering from Mayfield Road. And the second part that I also want to indicate that we're flexible on is, as you can see from the picture here, we have the patio on the east end of the building. We are willing to prepare to flip the patio to the west side of the building, which means one thing: no part of that patio will have any contiguity, or whatever the appropriate word is, with any part of Gates Mills Villa. It will be the farthest away. It'll be sheltered by the restaurant building itself. It'll be closer to the drive. It's not our preferred way, but it's a way of being flexible to the concerns, the valid concerns, whatever those may be. In closing, I request that council approve the variances that were granted. However, I am willing to give up the 20-foot setback. I think that the dangers of Winking Lizard and its patio have been grossly exaggerated. And the question is, what does Avon know? What does Beechwood know? What does Macedonia and Brunswick and Peninsula know that we don't know, that they've been happy with their Winking Lizards and allowed them to operate with patios? And that's the question. So thank you very much for the extra time. I appreciate your listening to me. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
We typically open at 11 a.m. 7 days a week. The kitchen is open until, depending on the location, either 10 or 11 at night, and the bar closes an hour later.
And if I may say one more thing, sorry, I neglected to mention.
I'm sorry, what was the question? It depends on the location. It depends on, Peninsula closes at 11. The store we have open the latest is in Independence. It's in a hotel district, and it's open till 2 a.m. on Friday and Saturday. But typically they're open till midnight and 1 a.m. on Friday and Saturday.
Sorry. What I neglected to mention before is that we would be happy to provide extra security at night for the first 6 months or a year after it opens, or certainly during the patio season, if that would make the city feel more comfortable, until Winking Lizard establishes a track record that I'm very comfortable they will, that they're good neighbors. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Please come forward and state your name and address at the podium.
My name is Marie Spalding, and I live at Gates Mills Club. Very happy to be there. And I came in because of the reasons that everybody else did. Good neighborhood, safety, security, and a lot of other things. The thing that comes to mind as I listen to what you're talking about, and I would say that in the long run, if you agree to go ahead with all of what they want, I may someday eat there because I've heard it is good food. But we're not talking about if I might eat there. What happens after you grant these variances to this organization? What happens when somebody else wants to come in and now you've got a variance? And that means you're going to give everybody else the same variance. The other thing is Costco has a long wall that doesn't seem to ever have any graffiti on it. Are you saying that bad people will come and make graffiti? I think that we need to consider this as a beginning of something that you want to make sure you have the right control when you start. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, please come forward and state your name and address at the podium.
My name is Mary Posevat, and I'm a resident of Gates Mills Club. I've been there a year, and I love it. It's unbelievable for anyone that is looking for a place like that. But my concern is that yesterday I happened to be driving through the parking lot from Target back to the back of our building, and there wasn't an open parking spot in that whole parking area. It was completely filled. Now, I'm not here to speak for the theater. I'm here to speak because a lot of those spots are going to be taken up by Winking Lizard. And what's going to happen to the people that want to go to the show and need to park there? That's a big consideration. So, and all the traffic, and what about the trash trucks that have to come to take care of them, and the deliveries? That's all added traffic that maybe hasn't been considered. It's just that I'm a lot younger than a lot of the people who live in that area, but there are people there who are much more delicate. And I think that it's an imposition to not consider what we expected when we moved into that area. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak about the Winking Lizard? Okay, is there anyone else who would like to be heard this evening on another subject? Mr. Johnson.
Name is Don Johnson with Kimball Recycling and Disposal. I'd like to thank the administration and council for the opportunity to address you at this moment. You've had some opportunity to look at the bids that were submitted on September 18th. You went out for bid to have service as you have today for manual collection of solid waste, rubbish, trash at the curb, and then also to have your residents get in their vehicle or walk if they're close enough, but probably most in vehicles, and drive and take their recyclable materials to a drop-off location where they place them into receptacles, and then they're transported to be recycled. The trend in the industry has been to go to curbside for many years in many differing ways, and there's no there's no reward to be the first community to be involved in recycling. So I commend your city for sitting back and looking to see what's the best option for you. And of the 3 bids that were presented, the manual, Kimball was not low bid, but for each of the curbside recycling programs, which will conserve more natural resource sources from your residents in the form of items that they purchase, but it'll also conserve some of their natural resources, the fuel that they put in their vehicle and the time that they have, and it probably increased, I know it would increase the participation that you have in your community. And Kimball is so much committed to that, and I've sent a packet to each of you. You've reviewed our history, and we invested $9 million in Twinsburg Township, Ohio, to build a single-stream recycling facility, so it's easier for us to provide services throughout our service area. And in northeastern Ohio, out of the 35 communities that have curbside cart service, Kimball provides a service to 14 of them. So we have proven that we are a quality service provider. We have an EPA-approved landfill in Dover, Ohio. We have a transfer station in Twinsburg where the solid waste that would be collected in your community would be taken and then transported to the EPA-approved landfill. And again, I mentioned the recycling facility. We have quality employees. We've shown, again, 14 communities that have gone to automated out of the 35 in Cuyahoga County speaks well of Kimball, and we are the lowest bid that we've bidder for the 3 curbside recycling programs that you've put out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Madam President, members of council, and mayor. Vince Crawford with Waste Management. My address is 12340 Auburn Road in Chardon, Ohio, where unfortunately we lost to Mayfield on Friday. I want to thank you for your time tonight. Over the last few weeks, as Mr. Johnson just alluded, the bid's been quite a while since it's been submitted, but there's been a lot of meetings, a lot of discussion, a lot of things to consider. And tonight, as council, you have to consider what's the right decision for your community with all the information that you've had to digest over these last 2 months. Weekly recycling, every other week recycling, carts, no carts. Now we have to think about grant money. Do we want to try and go for grant money or not? In Waste Management, we've presented a lot of information to you about our company that maybe you didn't know about before, and I appreciate that opportunity, talking about our safety culture, the investments that we have with our drive cam system in our trucks, our driver training program that's second to none, our safety manual that I brought and showed you examples of, our lead driver in your community, Joel, who's here with me tonight, he's also the chair of our safety committee. One additional piece of information that I have for you that I'll hand out and you can take a look at is Waste Management had a third-party vendor do a quick little survey for us to see if we were on track with our thinking with what the residents were looking at as well. And it's a small sample, but it was done by a third party. And 150 people that they were able to communicate and talk with, you'll see the results that the residents have stated, knowing that they would have to pay more to stay with Waste Management for one of the two services, would be willing to do that. And keep Waste Management as your service provider. From attending all the meetings that I've been at, I truly believe that I've seen from council that you really wish you could offer your residents the weekly recycling option and provide that to the community. It obviously is going to benefit all of the families, especially the ones that have more kids. It's going to eliminate any type of confusion of when the set out time is. And most significantly, it's going to match your surrounding communities. As Mr. Johnson talked about, the communities in Cuyahoga County, the 14 that they service, they're all weekly service on recycling. They're not every other week. The communities that all surround you, Mayfield Village, Highland Heights, Lyndhurst, they all have weekly recycle service. And as I presented at the last meeting, your bid rates were 4 to 8% lower than what Highland Heights had just received or what Mayfield Village is currently paying for that same service. So knowing as a council, you know that you're providing a good rate to your community. Additionally, tonight, unfortunately, we've had a lot of things last minute, but we discovered that in the bid analysis that Mr. Mercurio got to look at and confirm that what we had originally thought that weekly recycling service was going to cost was inflated. There was a small calculation in that big gigantic spreadsheet. So what we're looking at now is probably about $100,000 a year to add that service. That's not the price differential Waste Management. That's from going from the regular service you have today. So essentially, to break that down, your cost per home is about $1.70 more, $74 per home more to add weekly recycling service today than what you're currently doing. And in that bid submission, Mr. Johnson is correct. They were 4 cents home better than us. 4 cents per home. Their price was better than ours on that. And if you look at it over the 7-year time frame, where we make up in those last 2 option years that we've already committed to the city, our price is significantly better by a savings of $56,000 over the course of that entire contract. So I know you have this big decision to make, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to that. And I think, again, you know, with the decision you have at hand to move forward, you're not going to be disappointed if you choose that weekly recycle service, and your residents are not going to be disappointed with that opportunity. But you also have another choice, and that is to save some money and stay with the program you have right now, and to seek some grant dollars and let the state of Ohio try and fund that recycling program for you. Because unfortunately, as we learn that opportunity is there now, and once the recycling program starts, that opportunity is not there in the future. I know for certain that with some of this information, and I know that more importantly, you've been talking to your residents. You know what they want. You know what your residents are looking for, and I believe that at the end of the day, that the council, with either one of these weekly recycle options, if you were to choose, what you won't be is you won't be disappointed at the end of the day. If you do decide to move forward with an every other week scenario, I think you might have buyer's remorse. But I think that the second option gives you that opportunity to spend a little bit more time doing some research with your residents to really confirm what is that commitment that you want to do on the recycling. So tonight I'm asking that you would vote in favor of staying with Waste Management as your partner in safety and partner in service in Mayfield Heights. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is David Abramczyk. I'm from Roos Brothers Construction in Willoughby, Ohio, representing the team working on the renovation of the Villa Serena apartment complex. It's the other, I believe, less contentious planning issue tonight on your agenda. I also believe the Planning Commissioner's report correctly mentioned that we have addressed the 2 concerns that the council had at our last meeting, the last couple weeks ago. So I'm just here to let you know that I'm available if there's any further questions or concerns, but I hope that the council approves our final motion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, sir. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Pete Newman. I'm with the Ganley Auto Group. Our address is 6060 Mayfield Road, and he stole my speech. I was going to say we had the less contentious one. You know, as Mr. DeJohn said, we're you know, hoping to get the approval of you guys to make a little bit of change to our lot, allow some more parking for customers, inventory, and our employees. And so I'm here if there's any questions or anything that you guys have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, one more time. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard? Seeing no, close the public portion at 8:37. We will now move on to resolutions, and we will begin with Resolution 2015-53. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution number 2015-53, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Andrew Hoffman, Cosmo Eastgate Limited, on behalf of the Winking Lizard Restaurant, 1355 Psalm Center Road, a variance to conduct outside sales in conjunction with a patio. Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 862-29-014. Second reading.
Do I have a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mercurio. Seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes?
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So
Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. As you've heard, this resolution pertains to the Winking Lizard receiving the ability to put a patio on their property, and it was unanimously granted by the BZA. Mr. Mercurio, would you like to add anything to this?
Other than you stole the words from it, that it was unanimously approved by the BZA. Everything was taken into consideration with that Mr. Hoffman had said tonight. That's really all I have to say.
Any other discussion? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes?
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Resolution 2015-53 has been adopted. We will move on to Resolution 2015-54. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution number 2015-54, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Andrew Hoffman, Cosmo Eastgate Limited, on behalf of the Winking Lizard Restaurant, 1355 Som Center Road, a 10-foot setback variance to construct a new building on the property 20 feet from the south property line. Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 862-29-014. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes?
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. Discussion. This is the resolution. This is, again, a variance to construct the new building 20 feet from the south property line. Mr. Mercurio, would you like to add anything?
This was, again, a unanimous approval by the BZA, and I think the main thing we looked at is that even though it's 20 feet from the property line, it is 100+ feet away from the actual building.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes, did not Mr. Hoffman motion to amend?
Yeah, he can't make a motion.
Okay, pardon me. Well,
Mr. Hoffman said he can go without that additional variance. So we would need a motion if you wanted to go along with Mr. Hoffman's kind suggestion.
Can I motion to amend?
Make a motion, we have a motion to amend Resolution 2015-54 to,
Would it be to withdraw?
sorry.
Do I need a second?
What's your amendment?
Oh, yes.
You have to state
State
what
your-
your
Oh,
amendment
okay.
is.
Pardon me. To forego the 10-foot setback variance to construct the building and to, on the property 20 feet from the south property line. Correct? Just the 10-foot setback variance.
Mr. Murphy?
Sorry.
Then that would result in this resolution being voted down. It's not really an amendment, you would vote that down, but I think Mr. Hoffman indicated he wanted to go forward with it, and he would abide by the decision of council. Is that correct, Mr. Hoffman?
Yeah, the reason for the setback is actually one that was touched on by, I believe, the last speaker who talked about the parking conflict. that's the only reason why we asked for the setback, to separate as much as possible the traffic from Winking Lizard and the movie. However, again, in the interest of being flexible, I would be happy to withdraw the variance request. To be honest, I don't know what the proper procedure is with the city's ordinances, but whatever it will take, I am willing to do that.
Okay, Mr. Murphy?
Is there your indication that you're withdrawing that request for variance?
Yes.
No.
No. Just the one for the 20-foot setback.
Okay, so it has to be voted, yeah.
Might as well vote on it and see how council feels.
So we have to,
Yes, if you're voting yes, you are voting to confirm the BZA decision. If you vote no, you are voting to reverse or modify. I should say not confirm, because then if you don't confirm it, then you have to come up with either a modification or a denial at a subsequent meeting.
So we're voting on the legislation as is that correct?
we're voting on it as is. Right. So, because BZA has confirmed the variance, BZA has said yes, it was unanimous. If you vote yes, you're agreeing with BZA to allow the setback. If you vote no, you will be overturning BZA's decision. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mano?
No. Excuse me, no.
Mr. Mercurio?
No.
Mr. DeJohn?
No.
Mrs. Sabetta?
No.
Mr. Sharia?
No.
Mrs. Teresi?
No. Resolution 2015-54 has been overturned. Failed. Mr. Murphy?
If I may, pursuant to the codified ordinances, you have not confirmed the decision of the BZA. So at a subsequent meeting, hopefully the next one, there can be legislation introduced to modify the decision of the BZA or reverse it. But if nothing is done in 60 days, then it's confirmed. So you're going to need additional legislation.
Thank you. Resolution 2015-55. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution number 2015-55, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Andrew Hoffman, Cosmo Eastgate Limited, on behalf of the Winking Lizard Restaurant, 1355 Som Center Road, a variance to construct a new building on the property without the 6-foot masonry buffer wall along the east and south property lines. Cuyahoga County permanent parcel number 862-29-014. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. DeJohn?
No.
Mr. Sharia?
No.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve?
That failed. You
Failed.
needed 6 in order to suspend.
We don't have 6.
Nope.
Okay.
So it'll remain on, should be a motion for second reading.
Second reading. Okay, resolution 2015-55 has been placed on second reading. Well, we need a motion now to place it on. Okay, we need a motion to place on second reading. Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. Roll call on the motion to place on second reading.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressy?
Yes. Resolution 2015-55 has been placed on second reading. We'll move on to Resolution 2015-57. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Resolution number 2015-57. There's a substitute resolution, if I can find it. A resolution accepting bids for the weekly collection and disposal of solid waste and bi-weekly curbside collection of recycling and for container recycling and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Make my motion now.
Do I have a motion to place on first reading?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to place on first reading.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressy?
Yes. Resolution 2015-57 has been placed on first reading. We'll move on to Resolution 2015-58, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2015-58, a resolution accepting bids for the weekly collection and disposal of solid waste and for container recycling, authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a contract for said services based upon the bids and declaring an emergency. The contractor would be Waste Management, Inc.
Do I have a motion to place on first reading? Moved by Mr. Mercurio, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to place on first reading.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressy?
Yes. Resolution 2015-58 has been placed on first reading, and we will move on to ordinances. Ordinance number 2015-35.
Thank you. Ordinance number 2015-35, an ordinance amending the zone map of the city of Mayfield Heights, Ohio, so as to rezone permanent parcel numbers 861-30-019 and 861-30-020, southwest corner of Lander Road and Landerbrook Drive, from the current U7 headquarters or executive offices Park District to U8 office, engineering, medical, and research building districts in the city of Mayfield Heights. Actually, it's third reading. Where's that tabled? Okay, I'm not sure whether it's been third reading or it was tabled.
No,
It was
three
third.
readings, yeah.
Oh,
3 readings in the public hearing, so
Okay.
we're ready to vote.
okay.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Nope, approved.
Approved. Sorry. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. Roll call. Discussion? Roll call on the motion to approve?
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressy?
Yes. Ordinance 2015-35 has been approved. Now, we have we skipped a resolution that we have to go back and do, and that's Resolution 2015-59. Do you have that?
It's not on the agenda.
Where's that?
Email to everybody.
That's the new
That's a new-
agenda. I got it. I got the email. Yep, here it is.
Not on mine, even though it's in my notes.
This is the email for the. Yes.
So it had a new agenda?
I have it on mine.
Okay.
59 is on there. I don't, but I'll take this. But I have it on my notes.
I got it.
Okay. Resolution 2015-59, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Resolution number 2015-59, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Village of Gates Mills for furnishing emergency medical services for the year 2016. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressy?
Yes. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. Everyone received a copy of the agreement between the Village of Gates Mills and Mayfield Heights to provide emergency medical services for the year 2016. First hour is $690. Each additional quarter hour after the first hour is $170. Is there anyone who would like to add anything? Mr. Trivy?
This is a resolution we pass every year to provide that service to Gates Mills. Since they cannot reciprocate, we charge them if we do happen to be called in for an ambulance run. They have a contract with Mayfield Village and handles most of their calls, but periodically we are called if the village is not able to attend. So this way we can charge them for the service.
Thank you
We
very much.
increased the fees 5% over last year.
How many calls do we get?
Pardon me?
How many calls are there typically?
Probably half a
year?
dozen a year. Not very many at all. We're a secondary source.
Villages first. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressy?
Yes. Resolution 2015-59 has been adopted. We will now go back to our ordinances, and we'll begin with ordinance 2015-38. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Ordinance number 2015-38, an ordinance enacting Chapter 794 of the codified ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights regarding municipal income tax and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressy?
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. We received a memo. What?
I would suggest you just put it on first reading.
We're waiting for comments from Rita. It should go on first reading.
Okay.
If you could do such a motion.
So, is there a motion to place ordinance number 2015-38 on first reading? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Mercurio. Roll call on the motion to place on first reading.
Mr. Mercurio?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Sharia?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mrs. Tressy?
Yes, ordinance number 2015-38 has been placed on first reading. We will now move on to motions. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Motion to confirm the decision of the Planning Commission approving a final site plan for the addition of 50 parking spaces in the front of Villa Serena apartment building at 6800 Mayfield Road.
Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, seconded by Mr. Sharia. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion has been carried. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. Second motion to confirm the decision of the Planning Commission approving a preliminary site plan for Ganley Nissan, 6060 Mayfield Road, for a modification to an existing non-conforming use/building, removing a 7,000 square foot accessory building and adding an 1,870 square foot automatic car wash to the main building.
Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by Mr. Mano. Discussion? Would you like to add anything, Mr. DeJohn?
No, other than I'd like to see him get rid of that accessory use building that's there right now, so that'll be a nice addition to the city, getting rid of that big building, and it'll give him more parking spaces.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 This motion, opposed? This motion has been carried. We will now move on to new business and comments from council. Does anyone have any comments to share? Mr. DeJohn?
Thank you, Madam President. I too would also like to congratulate Council President Gail Teresi, Councilwoman Diane Snyder, and Councilwoman Donna Finney on their successful elections this year, and want to let all of them know I look forward to working with them for a better Mayfield Heights. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeJohn. Any other comments from council this evening? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Sharia, seconded by Mr. You're gonna first and second.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Mercurio. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Our meeting has been adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for coming.